Greetings, everyone. It's time to close out week number 5 with some replays just like usual. Only thing is, we are still waiting on one more match to get an extension, so just like last time, we're only going to go through 2 replays this time until that last match happens. We're going to go ahead and start with Ryu versus Eltrim 24. And Ryu's been on a really big tear in the past few weeks with a Dragon Knight next to Stonejourner's power spot. Really, the entire team is just greatly offensive, and Stonejourner just enables that really, really well. And I don't see that changing here versus Eltrim's team. I don't have a lot of ways to mitigate the damage coming out from these Pokemon outside of getting the commander through Dondozo and using the unaware ability for any stat changes that might come through, which Ryu doesn't really have, to be honest, outside of the power spot from Stonejourner and any boost from the rain that it might get for Rotom or Floatzel. You kind of have to expect that Sylveon comes along for Eltrim just to kind of stem the tide from the Dragonite, but how do you really protect against the physical offense from that Dragonite with Sylveon's weaker defensive side? It's kind of hard to gauge. You almost expect that Gothorita comes just so you can try and target out their lead, perhaps maybe burst something down with Tatsugiri and then swing in Dondozo as you will to come on the back end and defend against whatever may still be left. It's a really weird matchup from Eltrim's side, I think Ryu has just complete advantage, especially with some really cool tech options like skill swap to Gardevoir to get rid of the unaware on the Dondozo. But Eltrim, they can squeeze by with, like I just mentioned, with something like Gothorita, plus maybe like Scarf Tatsugiri to snipe things out. Could use something like Vivillon to kind of slow down the game with rage powders or sleep powders, as you will. But it's going to be tough overall, especially since you can't get I don't think you can viably get speed control with Talonflame in this game because of the threat of the rain. It just makes it a little bit less effective if you try and swing for that. There's a potential that Lumineon could come again just for the Storm Drain. That'll help a little bit with the damage from Pelipper and Floatzel, but you still have to deal with the Rotom Wash potentially, and Thunderbolt's just gonna rip through Lumineon. Serena potentially comes here. That'll help stop the fake outs from Tinkaton and Sneasel and even Salazzle, though then it's still just to counter that, Sneasel and Salazzle both have stab super effective moves into Serena, so it's still really dangerous, really tough. I'm kind of excited to see how this one goes, especially as we're trying to scrap for wins at the end of this season. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so on Eltrim's side, Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Gothorita, Lucario, Sylveon, and Vivillon have been selected, whereas Ryu's opted for Dragonite, Stonejourner, Rotom Wash, Gardevoir, Glimmora, and Salazzle. So interesting enough, there's no rain this time from Ryu's side, which makes a little bit of sense. It helps to prevent any damage boost to the Wave Crash or Muddy Water from the Dondozo Tatsugiri. Not sure if it would have mattered completely here. And also they're leading into their poison types, which is going to help make quick work of the Sylveon, which then in turn protects the Dragonite a little bit from like Hyper Voice or Terra Blast, the pixelated versions. They're also good against the Serena if Eltrim had brought it along, which helps clear the way for the Rotom Wash. So let's see how this one goes. Pokeballs are out, and Gothorita and Lucario leading for Eltrim. On Ryu's side, we see the Stonejourner and the Salazzle leading. Fake out into the Gothorita. It's going to stop it from using a fake out of its own. Lucario launching the Flash Cannon into the Stonejourner is going to make quick work of it, though it hangs on by its Focus Sash. Rock Polish, interesting enough, coming out from the Stonejourner. It's going to need to put in some work considering it's trapped in by the Shadow Tag here. It's probably predicting like a Mach Punch or a Bullet Punch, and there it is. Vacuum Wave is actually the option here. Overheat into the Gothorita is gonna miss, unfortunately. There's probably an eject pack on there. It's gonna be its out against the Shadow Tag here. Vacuum Wave one more time into the Stonejourner, and that's going to clear it from the field. Overheat one more time. This time it does connect. Does a good chunk into the Gothorita, and there is the eject pack. We saw that in the previous week. That gets it out regardless of the shadow tag. Rotom Wash coming in to salvage the situation along with Gardevoir here. Helping hand from the Gothorita just before Moonblast takes it out. Just gonna see what Lucario does here with the damage boost, and Dragon Pulse actually gonna clear out the Rotom with a critical hit. Not sure if it mattered due to the helping hand boost, but we'll do the calcs later there. Sylveon coming in place of Gothorita. It's going to protect really quickly here, as the Acid Spray is what's going to come out from it. Moonblast from the Gardevoir is going to clear out the Lucario, however. It's kind of a menace there, so that need to be cleared as soon as possible. Muddy Water from the Tatsugiri, that is definitely a Scarf version. It's going to clear out the Salazzle, but it's going to trade a kill there, taking a Moonblast for its service. Hyper Voice coming in from the Sylveon gets the boost from the Throat Spray, not enough to KO the Gardevoir, however. Doesn't matter though, Sylveon's gonna win the 1v1 here, as Gardevoir's on life support and Sylveon pretty healthy, with a good enough special defense boost to take that Moonblast quite comfortably here. So what a brawl here, and that's kind of what Eltrim is gonna need, I believe, with the by using the Gothorita to lock down some of these Pokemon. It's going to prevent any shuffling around, and if they lead incorrectly, or in this case just scoping out the Stonjourner here, using its weak special defense side and taking advantage of that through the Flash Cannon and Vacuum Wave, was good prep from Eltrim, I believe. If they can continue to do that and continue to trade effectively, they can come out on top in this series, I believe. Alright, game number 2, let's go. Alright, one more time we see the Gothorita coming in from Eltrim, this time sitting next to the Dondozo. I'm gonna try one more time with the Stonjourner here on Ryu's side, leading out with Salazzle again. Gothorita is gonna use Fake Out into the Stonjourner. Meanwhile, Salazzle opting for the Acid Spray, setting up for the next couple of turns. Wave Crash coming in from the Salazzle, from the Dondozo into the Salazzle, clears it out really quickly. But now we got the special defense drop. They're looking to take advantage of it with the Gardevoir here. Dondozo's gonna protect, smartly enough, as the Moonblast is aimed into it. Rock Slide coming out from the Stonjourner. Gonna do a little bit of chip damage into Gothorita, and it does get the flinch. Eltrim in a little bit of trouble here as we find the position on Ryu's side. Moonblast not gonna switch out the Dondozo here. So it's gonna go down with that special defense drop. It was just gonna be cleared. Another flinch from the Rock Slide from the Stonjourner, and Lucario comes in, trying to take the place of Dondozo. Terra Water from the Gardevoir here, probably protecting against the trying to protect against the Flash Cannon if it wasn't quick enough, but it moves ahead of the Lucario and clears it out with another Moonblast. Helping hand coming out from the Gothorita to boost the Draco meter, which is going to take out the now Terra Watered Gardevoir. That is going to be a Rock Slide coming out from the Stonjourner though to do some extra chip damage. Tatsugiri in a bit of trouble with the special attack drop. Helping Hand's going to try and boost the damage, and of course we take advantage of the low special defense from Stonjourner. Remember, the sash was broken earlier through the Fake Out, so it's not going to be able to save it this time. Rotom though is in place to go ahead and take the game from the Gothorita. Is only going to do so much damage with the Psychic, a surprising amount still. But a couple of Thunderbolts is going to close out the game. Alright, so a little bit of trouble with the selection here from Eltrim's side. The Gardevoir found a good position, especially after the Acid Drop connected from the Salazzle onto the Dondozo. And they just didn't have any good switches into the Moonblast from the Gardevoir. So, good way to find that position early on from Ryu. We're taking it to a game number 3 here as a result. Alright, one more game for all the marbles here in week 5 for Ryu versus Eltrim. And Eltrim this time going with Vivillon next to Sylveon. And we see Rotom and Salazzle one last time here for Ryu's side. Fake Out coming into the Vivillon. It's going to go ahead and get the flinch there, and a Thunderbolt to follow it up, avoiding any potential sash there. So don't get to see Vivillon play this time. Hyper Voice automatically coming out from Sylveon and going to get that special attack boost from the Throat Spray. Gothorita coming in with the Fake Out into the Salazzle. It's not going to be able to use Overheat to try and get out of the situation this time. Thunderbolt from the Rotom coming into the Sylveon. Hyper Voice, gonna do a good chunk of damage, but not quite enough to take out the Rotom, and Salazzle still alive as well. Acid Spray, gonna connect onto the Sylveon. What can Rotom do with that? Thunderbolt, still not enough to KO, but they get the paralysis onto the Sylveon. That might be crucial. Hyper Voice gonna finish off the KO onto the Rotom, still not gonna take out the Salazzle just yet. Stonjourner gonna come in to salvage the situation. Sylveon protecting for its life in the last legs here, but the overheat coming in from Salazzle is gonna activate the jetpack and save it for another day. They get one more fake out from that Pokemon. Gardevoir coming in, Earthquake coming in from the Stonjourner, and the Gardevoir is going to avoid it thanks to the telepathy. Gothorita Psychic, the Gardevoir takes that pretty well. Energy Ball coming out from the Gardevoir to finish off the Sylveon, whereas Rock Slide from the Stonjourner is going to finish off the Gothorita. We're getting into the closing turns here as Lucario is coming in to see if it can 1v3 here. It's going to Terra Flying. The Stonjourner protects, expecting the Flash Cannon going that way, but the Flash Cannon goes into the Salazzle instead, calling out the Protect from the Stonjourner. It's going to get close, folks. Here is Gardevoir, and it may still be faster than the Lucario. Terra Water coming out. Moonblast is going to finish off the Lucario. And Ryu is your winner for this series. So interesting set of games there. We saw a couple of things, including the lack of rain from Ryu, which once again makes sense. You don't really need rain to try and deal with Eltrim's team, especially since your main contender is that Dondozo, the tier 1 there. You're not going to be launching a ton of water moves into that slot. Ideally, you're relying on Rotom's Thunderbolts, assuming that the Dondozo doesn't use Terra to rip through it. I do like the preparation with using Salazzle to use Acid Spray, and that helps the Rotom damage along with Stonjourner if the Salazzle ever goes down. Just a lot of ways without rain to boost damage from Ryu. Could have even used something like Fake Tears from Sneasel. Could have used like even Screech if you want to go the physical route with the Dragonite. I just think a lot of options for Ryu's side makes this really tough for Eltrim. You also come to realize that the Gothorita is a great idea for Eltrim's lineups, helping to scout out certain matchups and hopefully rip through them. We saw what happened on game 1 with the Lucario, leading into the Stonjourner, was able to make relatively quick work through it. Had to still deal with the Focus Sash on the back end of everything, but you can kind of see the plan come together. If Gardevoir led and it didn't use Terra Water, the Lucario potentially takes it out with the Flash Cannon, right? The Gardevoir, it seemed to be faster than the Lucario at every turn, so in the end that didn't matter. You can kind of see the chinks in the armor for Eltrim's side, where even if you lead the Gothorita and you get a decent lead, if a Pokemon like Gardevoir comes in with the Moonblast, it's very hard to switch in on the backside unless like you lead Dondozo and then you activate the Commander swinging through to try and get the damage on the board, get a little bit beefier to mitigate some of the damage. But yeah, I think just the overall really tough matchup for Eltrim. I think that they made some pretty solid preparation for Ryu, but just wasn't enough to overcome this monster of a team. So Ryu continues their streak going into week 6. Your next matchup is Whatshamidt versus KeystoneRecords. And I think for this one, Whatshamidt may have somewhat of an advantage versus KeystoneRecords' team here. It's a really weird dynamic where I think if you bring along Orthworm, it doesn't solve every problem, but I think it gets you into a pretty solid position, I believe. Like when you look at Garganicle's position versus the team, like look at Garganicle, you look at Clodsire, you look at Arboliva, the Orthworm is going to be faster than all 3 of those Pokemon, and you can get a free Shed Tail off as a result, since neither of these Pokemon are going to be hitting Orthworm effectively to try and break the substitute from the Shed Tail. If you can use that to put something like a Knucklestack or Flamigo into position, you can get off some some pretty good early damage, or at least for Knuckle Stack, you start stacking up the Salt Cures before they can really get a chance to move. On Keystone Records side, though, you may consider something like Body Press, so you can eventually deal with something like Orthworm, even the Magnezone and Knuckle Stack. I just think those are threats that you have to be able to address. The Amoonguss becomes a non-factor thanks to the, well, not completely a non-factor, but it mitigates what it can do while it's on the field thanks to the Purifying Salt ability. Next to that, we are going to get a chance to see Tauros versus Tauros and see how that pans out. You kind of have to expect that Tauros comes along for Keystone Records because of the threat, the quote-unquote threat of Flamigo. You kind of want to mitigate the damage that it's doing. Because if Garganical doesn't Terra, you're kind of left to your own devices and trying not to die to a close combat, right? Either way, pretty interesting dynamic. I'm wanting to see 3 full games from this one, so let me go ahead and grab the replays. Okay, game 1. On Whatshamidt's side, we have Flamigo, Houndoom, Magnezone, Amoonguss, Abomasnow, and Satitan. Keystone Records has opted for Skeledirge, Corviknight, Tauros, Espeon, Arboliva, and Garganical. So we're not going to see Tauros versus Tauros, nor are we going to see Knuckle Stack versus Garganical. Alright, Pokeballs are out, and we see Espeon and Skeledirge leading for Keystone Records, with Houndoom starting off with Magnezone for Whatshamitt's side. Espeon gonna make a quick exit out into Tauros, probably looking to take the crunch from the Houndoom, or the Dark Pulse rather, excuse me, I'm an old head. Dark Pulse immediately into the Skeledirge, 1-hit KOs it. Arboliva gonna come in to try and salvage the situation. Houndoom's gonna, oddly enough, switch out here, and the Amoonguss comes in to take its place. Magnezone using Terra Flying, good options, gonna avoid the damage from that Body Press, and strikes right back with a Thunderbolt to 1-hit knock out the Tauros. The Earth Power from Arboliva is also gonna miss on the Magnezone, and Whatchamidt has a good position here. Espeon coming in, 1-hit KOs the Amoonguss. We're going trade after trade here. 1-hit KOs across the board. Terra Blast from the Magnezone's Terra Flying, so it's going to knock out the Arboliva, continuing the trend of trading and trading and trading. Houndoom taking the place here. It's going to go ahead and lock down the Espeon with the Dark Pulse. No recourse for Keystone Records here. It's just going to go ahead and clean up here in the 2v1. Psychic, not enough this time to take the knockout into the Magnezone, but Dark Pulse, again, going to go ahead and clear it out. What a battle, quick paced. We see this a lot through Whatshamitt's team. It's kind of a trend where they have to kind of trade blow for blow, especially if they can snag a knockout. We're probably going to see more of that as we continue on to the series and into the final week of this competition too. Moving on to game number 2. All right, leading off for Keystone Records this time is the Garganical, sitting next to Espeon, and we're seeing Magnezone make a return appearance, this time sitting next to Flamigo. Espeon gonna make another quick exit into the Tauros to try and intimidate the Flamigo here, but thanks to Scrappy, the attack is not lowered. The Garganical is going to Terra into Ghost, and the close combat connects onto it, but thanks to the Scrappy ability, it gets to do some chip damage there. Magnezone going to follow up with the Flash Cannon, while Garganical goes for the Iron Defense, but it's on life support at 30% here. Magnezone, Terra Flying, while Flamigo follows up with Brave Bird ahead of the Tauros there, barely avoids the knockout, and gets knocked out by the Zen Headbutt in return. Magnezone with a Thunderbolt to close out the KO onto the Garganical before it can try and recover here. Houndoom gonna take the place here, and it's gonna find itself opposite of Espeon. Aqua Jet into the Houndoom does a pretty decent chunk of damage, not enough for the KO, but the follow-up from Dazzlebeam is gonna be enough. Now Magnezone itself is gonna be on life support. Thunderbolt into the Espeon clears it out of the way, no doubt thanks to the analytic ability boosting its damage there. Skeledirge is going to come here, and it finds itself up against Abomasnow. This is a pretty good position for Keystone Records, I believe. The Raging Bull coming in from the Tauros to try and clear out the Magnezone, while Abomasnow sets up the Aurora Veil. Going to take a huge amount of pain from the Torch Song for its troubles, but thanks to Aurora Veil, doesn't immediately go down, but Skeledirge pretty healthy and with a +1 to its special attack. Raging Bull into Magnezone, simultaneously taking it out and clearing out the Aurora Veil from Whatshamit's side. Now the Blizzard's going to KO the Tauros, but barely do any damage to the Skeledirge, who is sitting pretty on the opposite side of the field to clear out the game. Now make sure you avoid looking at the left corner here where it says the Aurora Veil still up. Raging Bull took care of that early on. So we see KeystoneRecords was successfully able to slow down the game, or the pace of the game, with Garganical there. I think the Terra was very crucial. You see the trend where Whatshamitt's trying to just trade, one hit KO for one hit KO. And if you get to avoid that and get one hit KOs for yourself, you're able to take better control over the pacing of the game. And that's exactly what happened through the help of the Tauros, crucially surviving that Brave Bird from the Flamigo. I'm not sure if that was a roll or if that was guaranteed. But yeah, after taking out the Flamigo and stifling the damage from the Magnezone, having to take an extra turn to KO the Garganical, just put KeystoneRecords into a really good position. Really fun stuff. Okay, so far we've managed to get a game 3 on both of our matches for this video, so let's take another look at this setup here. We see Skeledirge and Corviknight coming out for KeystoneRecords, and Houndoom making one last appearance, this time next to the Abomasnow. Now, the Unnerve ability is active instead of Mirror Armor, so that Ogwav Berry on the Abomasnow is not going to be able to be eaten if it goes down here. Dark Pulse from the Houndoom going into Tauros, that switches in place of Skeledirge, while the Corviknight uses Sunny Day. Nice option to prevent the Aurora Veil from going up on the Abomasnow. I don't think they were expecting that. Houndoom switches out into the Titan this time, while Corviknight exits the field in favor of Arboliva here. Tauros gonna use Body Press into the Titan, does 62% of its health, pretty good chunk. It's set to go down pretty quickly as they cycle back in the Abomasnow in that spot this time. Terra Flying from the Magnezone gonna come out. Arboliva is gonna protect, expecting it to be attacked there. Another Body Press from the Tauros goes into the Abomasnow, does a huge chunk, and a good protect from KeystoneRecords as the Terrifying Terra Blast was aimed in that direction. They're going to swap out the Arboliva for the Skeledirge this time though. Body Press goes in the Abomasnow, so no Aurora Veil in this game. Thunderbolt, going to go ahead and clear out the Tauros though. Skeledirge, what are we doing? We'll see in this following turn. Here comes Corviknight again. Going to try and clear out the snow through Sunny Day, very likely. Body Press into the Titan, actually. Not enough to KO it. The defense boost from the snow is a little bit too much. We see the Liquidation going into the Skeledirge. Does a decent chunk of damage, but it's not quite enough without any kind of stab here. Thunderbolt into the Corviknight. It's going to go ahead and clear it out, but the damage is being done by its own item. It's going to slowly chip it out here if they don't do anything quickly. Another Liquidation from the Titan is going to bring the Skeledirge down to 32%, while the Torch Song is going to go ahead and clear out the Magnezone. That leaves Arboliva to safely Earth Power this Titan to close out the game. Oh, sorry, there's one more Pokemon to get through. These matches have been going so fast, I thought that was the last Pokemon. My apologies. Heat Wave, gonna go ahead and clear out the Arboliva, but the Earth Power from Skeledirge, as it survives the Heat Wave on 5% health, is gonna be more than enough to take the match there. So, really awesome series, I believe. Again, from Whatshamidt, you see the trend. We're just going straight for the throat, trying to get these one-hit KOs here. They managed to slow down the game this time in game number 3, trying to go for the Aurora Veil, but they were directly countered by the Sunny Day option from Corviknight. I don't think anyone would have expected that going into this matchup, but that threw all their plans out of whack. Not able to set up an Aurora Veil, not really able to reliably use Blizzard, so they're forced to switch out. Took a huge chunk of damage on the Titan, which is trying to take advantage of the snow, and then they have to reset that snow and take additional damage on incoming to try and salvage the situation. Constantly being on the back foot there just put KeystoneRecords in a really good position on their end. Though admittedly, the Houndoom found a really good position at the end game with Skeledirge very heavily chipped out there, If the heat wave does just a little bit more damage, that salvages the game for Whatshamidt to improve their record. Either way, fun stuff, and congrats to both winners of these sets, Ryu and Keystone Records. Now, like I mentioned, we are waiting for one more matchup, and that should be Quaelectra versus Tree Dolphin. They've got an extension for week number 5. Now, not only is that going to delay the review of the replay, but the next video just going over the standings and comparing to my initial rankings. I do want to wait for that match to conclude so we can get an accurate look of the current standings with the close of week 5, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Either way, appreciate you watching this. Please leave a like and comment if you don't mind, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.